Welcome to podcast number 2 of TED Talk, or did I say Tech Talk? By the way, we've got a special guest today. We have JJ joining us from the confines of RMI facility. JJ, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
JJ loves technology, big fan of it, and he'll be participating in the Q&A today. Mark, how are you today?
I'm doing terrific.
Great. Well, we got off to a good start last time. We had over 50 some listeners on our first podcast, so we're looking forward to another good one. I know it's not to the level that The Mandalorian is getting at Disney Plus right now, but we'll try to catch them sooner or later.
My mom also said she was tired of watching it. She watched it 37 times. She was done.
Well, that's great. That's great. Well, so Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you and fire away with your first question, and then I've got some questions as well. Or I'm going to do the first question.
It's your call.
All right.
I can start.
No, I'll fire away. So Mark, you and I are always talking about the value IT brings and the budget that's needed to run IT and move the software forward. So now that we're 8 months into COVID, how do you think technology has helped the company during COVID time? And give me some examples maybe of how you've used it or your team has used it, besides, of course, email.
Well, that's actually, through COVID, one of the things that we luckily did as a company, probably 2 years ago, JJ? Mm-hmm. We started crossing over. We got rid of desktop computers, got everybody laptops, not for the purpose of them going home or working from home, but for the purpose of them being able to take their work to home. It was mainly just because a lot of times someone couldn't get everything done or things came in later in the evening and they didn't have the ability to pull it. So because we went in and we made that change, we set everybody up so that they could work from home. That technology and that ability to be able to do it and changing the software so we could, being web-based, doing stuff that way, has been huge, because when COVID hit and we had a couple people that were concerned or at risk and get a little sniffle, it was easiest just to say, you know what, everybody will work from home. Currently today, we're still telling people work from home. They allow them to come to the office if they need, but make sure you keep your social distance and all that other fun stuff. But that would be the first thing off the top of my head that I would say was the best.
Right. How has sales adapted? Do you find that they're using Zoom meetings or GoToMeetings a lot?
All we're doing is Zoom. It's usually, I just flew back in from California yesterday. I flew into LAX actually in Phoenix. When I left in the morning, it was dead. I was like, there is nobody here, and it was 8 o'clock in the morning. Landed in LAX. These are two of the busiest airports in the whole country. LAX, there's nobody there. It was just weird. I mean, it was zombie apocalypse type of feel, because just nobody was around. So travel's got to be killing the airlines, but travel and all that stuff. For the most case, everybody is like, no, let's just Zoom, because you can get it one-on-one. You can have it. Now, there's always something good about breaking bread with somebody, but for the most case, sitting down and talking to them, we've been following up with most of our clients. We're able to get Zoom calls set up. It's a 15, 20-minute thing, in and out. That technology's been awesome. I think the technology that has brought us as a company, we've come a long way, and we have a long way to go. But the technology of the awareness of where a job is now, because of the buckets system that we have set up, that's JJ's baby on that too. But that system's allowed people to have more visual of where a job is. So here in Phoenix, you can be working in the comforts of your pajamas in your bed, and you can know what's happening on a job in Nashville. And it's kind of cool. Anything to add?
No, other than that, it wouldn't have been possible without that visibility and control, basically, of what we're doing. There's just no way that we would have accomplished it without that technology. And backing up to the sales piece of it a little bit, just something to add to that. It's actually been really interesting. I've said this quite a few times. We've actually been more in front of our customers through this than before. Prior to the pandemic, we would have to book days and meetings well in advance to get in front of somebody and break bread with them and actually be, eye to eye. And the thought of using FaceTime was almost awkward. It was like, you can FaceTime with your kids or relatives, and it's acceptable. With a customer, it was kind of weird.
Yeah.
And now it's completely socially acceptable to be face to face. And I feel like, I think most of us feel like we've been more connected with our customers than ever because of this, because we can look them eye to eye through Zoom. Zoom was barely known before this pandemic, so it's actually gotten us even more in front of our customers. But back to the ability to be remote, it's just not possible unless you have those tools to be able to quantify quantify your activity every day across the board, and be able to connect with those people that are out of the office and working remotely.
Yeah, great.
We've been working remotely for the most case. We're based out of Phoenix. We're in 14 other states. We've been remote from those states for the most case for 10 years or so.
Yeah.
So the technology that's been around, we've been using it. I just think that with the pandemic, it's heightened it.
Yeah.
I think the Zoom calls has helped considerably, and it's kind of created people where they had to commit to do it, get away from old school and go forward.
Yeah. No, great. Actually, what's kind of interesting, when there's always a tragedy or we haven't had that many pandemics, but there's always industries that pop out of that, and just two of them I'll share with you. One of them is there is now consultants out there that will help you design your backdrop for your room.
Yeah.
So there's a vibe. Like I know I've been on some calls with some high level people, and they're in a room that looks like something out of the 70s.
Yeah. Like
the beads in the background, wood paneling on the wall. It's like, so there's a whole industry around how do you create the ultimate backdrop for your business since you're doing it from home. That's one. And the second one,
that's funny,
which is something we could possibly use, is lunch and learns were always very popular, where you'd go to a city, or you're in your city and you'd buy people lunch and they'd come and you would share business. Well, that hasn't stopped. So like DoorDash and food companies that are delivering, you can now do a lunch and learn remotely. So you can just go in and say you want to put $150 on in the account, and then you can invite the people to the lunch and learn, and they'll deliver the food to their house. So while they're eating lunch on you can be doing your webinar or your thing. So it's just changed the way
it really has.
People have. So it's there's a lot of ingenuity going on out there, and even during bad times.
Yeah. So. You asked how we've seen it go, and it's actually, as you look back, I can see where technology's helped, right? Through COVID and through different stuff. But how do you value technology as on a project, the technology team? One of my struggles is I'm looking at a project, and let's say we're talking about building a floorboard or a new app. How do I put a value to that to know where to go, and what is a better way to do that? Because that's always a struggle of mine. Because the first thing I think is okay, how long is it going to take? Well, we got 10 developers, we've got an IT team of, let's say, someone's got an IT team of 20 people, and I need to get this app done. And I look at that and I'm like, wow, it's going to cost me a year's time, and that's going to be $2 million. Those are the things, I'm making the numbers up, obviously, but those are the things that puzzle me. So how do you value a project today?
Yeah, I get that question quite a bit, and as I was mentioning before, and before we got on the podcast, is IT is every quarter needs to justify their budget, justify the team. That's just normal, right? And I think we need to do a better job of sharing those things with the executive staff. But the one thing I always looked at with technology is, and this is with any project or anything you're doing, is stop doing it and see if it adds value. That's the best way to do it. If you're running a program, or you're doing a newsletter, or doing something, just stop doing it and see the value, because people will come out of the woodwork and say, hey, this thing doesn't work, I need that. How come I'm not getting my monthly reports anymore?
You can't stop building what you're doing. Stop buckets. Stop
No,
Rebo?
just stop investing in it and just let it go.
See what happens?
And see what happens. And more than likely, people are going to say, I need to do this. There's too many clicks to place an order. You know, people, well, that's why I'm saying our customers will drive our value. And that's why we do the NPS score, which a lot of you don't know, but every 6 months, IT and the DSS team does a net promoter score where we find out, and you probably get them a lot at home or in your email, and you rate them 0 to 10. 9 and 10 are people who really like you and recommend you. 0 to 6, they're detractors. They don't really like what you're doing. So we started, 2 years ago at a 1, and now we're up to a 40, and we've had 12 months straight at a 40. So that's just one data point. It's not, it's not the
It's a
end.
way to get a pulse of what everybody's thinking.
Yeah, and we do track it by group, so we know what group values, us more or less.
I just wish there was an easier way to monetize the value of something.
Quantify.
To quantify it. I guess, to say, I'm just going to ask, but to say to just quit doing it, so that you got to lay off your IT team so you don't have it. And then by the time you do that, you made a major mistake because it's going to cost you in the long run. You don't want to do that.
To me, it's
a tough one.
Yeah.
To me, it's two pieces, right? It's the project piece. Like, I think it's easier to quantify the project piece. You can take a big project like we did with the floorboard, and you can literally drill down to the dollar savings of just inefficiencies, right? And then, the value add to the customer is a little bit more difficult to put a dollar, sign on, but the efficiency side of it can be quantified, I think.
Have we done any projects that are duds? Think back with where we've been in the last 3-4 years. Have we set up and said, this is a project, I want to do this project, and it ended up being a dud? How do we know we're not just throwing money down a project and it's a turd?
Great question.
That's the second side of this, and the second side is the maintenance or the tweaking or the evolving of a system or the changes to what you have. And so that's the piece that scares me. It's how many of those little tweaks and changes did we spend, a small portion of time on that actually made things a little bit worse for us. How do you quantify that, and how do you avoid that? Which goes to my question to the field is how do you avoid making those? Is it just a matter of truly vetting out the requests in the proper way, making sure that you have systems or checks in place for? I mean, we have hundreds of people here that make requests on a monthly basis. And one of those requests could take 8 to 10 hours of time of one of our programmers. And how do we know that's the proper request? So to me, is it just putting those checks and balances in place of, look, any of this manner of request needs to be flowed through this approval chain. Any project of these sizes need to flow through this.
So you don't get someone going on a wild goose chase.
There is, and that's part of going back to our previous podcast about Waterfall versus Agile. I would say that IT is way more efficient than they are now in general across the globe than they were, because with Waterfall you would build the whole project. So you're talking like 9 months a year, spending a lot of money, and you really don't know if it's successful or not. That's why Agile came out and said, I want to fail fast. That means if I fail fast, that's less money. So it's sunk cost. And I would say the warehouse project was probably is a failure.
But not a bad example of, though, once we dove into it, we realized that we were looking at it quick enough that, okay, we want to cut the strings on this and go another direction.
No, but if we went down the path of building that,
we failed fast in the warehouse. Yeah,
right. Example. We would be 6 months in and figuring out, well, we need this, we need that. So you're right, JJ, about, I think we really need to look at, when we do a project or a maintenance fix, like, how many points is that? What is the real value? And product owners need to do that. And I know Randy's spread pretty thin right now, but that is the job of a product owner to figure that out. So the one thing I wish we wouldn't have quit on the warehouse project is that was the first time we were doing an API to an outside vendor, and we didn't finish it. And it was one thing. It was the one win I'd love to get out of that. So because going on to one of your other questions about build versus buy, like I think we should only build things that add intellectual property to the company. A warehouse system doesn't. If you look at all our competitors and even some of the ones
we're
that are
converting back to building. We're decided that we're going to build the software.
Right. I think we need to talk. About. We might have picked the wrong vendor and the wrong solution. I'm not sure if building it in house is the right thing. I think we should bring that back up and discuss it and make the right decision next time.
Every coder that we talk to is a builder. Every coder wants to build. That's all they want to do. And so they also are the smartest guy ever, but they want to build, which is fine. I get it because it's probably more exciting and it's fun to go do that. But back to where it goes, it's not building. It's not putting an API building. You'd have to build something to get the API to work. Is that not just sexy?
Well, the world's moving to APIs. Like the more we can integrate in and out with other systems, the more we're going to be able to add features at a really low cost. Once you go down the path of building something, it's long. I mean, look, we're still building on Rebo. Yeah. I mean, we're still building on buckets, right?
We will it'll never end.
That's right, because
someone's always doing updates. Yeah. Even if you buy a box, when they're going to update it, and it's going to have to update and tie into the API or whatever. Is that the biggest miss that you feel out of the inventory module? Is that just the API? My biggest concern is that in looking at it, it just didn't seem to make sense. When we tried to add it up and to make it work, they didn't know, and it was like, okay, we're spending money on I don't know, and it was
my analysis of lead commerce was that they're spread too thin, and Jason, the project manager, was on every call. It was like it was him or nobody else, and he knew exactly what was going on the whole time. Yeah. And our struggles.
But didn't he act like he didn't?
He at the very end, I know, I saw that. I was just like, that's not the case, because he was at the center of the project. So, I think we chose the wrong vendor, and I think the software was 80 to 90% of what we needed, and I think there was just one or two things that needed to happen, and I think they could have forced it and made it happen, but. I think selling fast is not a bad thing.
Yeah. So what is the lesson learned there for us? What is the lesson learned for the listeners? As they approach partnerships like that.
I think we know now what we want better than we did when we signed up, and I'm part to blame for that, since I was key in recommending the lead commerce. So I think we know now when we talk to a vendor, we know here's the 25 things it's got to do it, or we're not moving on. So I think that's why I'd like to revisit the buy versus build on this next time.
Well, so the ultimate goal is it's always better, if we can, it would be better to buy and then API and tie it together, because that seems to be where the trends are going.
Right. Because
which I agree.
Think about,
do we have any API with Rebo yet? Anything?
Some you could say some of them, like to QuickBooks we do, but QuickBooks is a big giant system. So, but there's a lot of complicated stuff that's going back and forth that Steve built. I mean, it's pretty impressive. But no, I'm talking about more, moving the business forward rather than accounting and warehouse stuff, and that's more on the accounting side.
So how do we quantify the value of ownership if we build? And I guess another good question would be the ability to customize an add-on. How do you rate that factor? I mean, what's the acceptable level of adaptability for our needs? To me, as lead commerce being the example, the adaptiveness of the two platforms just didn't seem. It was like a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah. There's when you look at software, there's lead commerce is a software as a service. So it's a platform that they've built, and they're trying to monetize by getting more customers to come onto their platform. There's other ways to do it. We could go out and look at, there are free open source libraries, warehouse libraries. So an alternative is to go look at a warehouse open source library that we could customize the code. It's free. It's open. There's like WordPress. I don't know. You guys familiar with WordPress?
Heard of it.
It's got 800 million websites is on WordPress. WordPress is a free open source build your own website platform. You two could go on there, download a template, and build your own website, and it's all free. Like 20 years ago, it would have cost you $100,000 to do that.
Yeah.
So developers get together and they said, let's build an open source platform that lets people build their own websites, and let's proliferate, this industry, everybody, and that's
Proliferate.
Yeah.
Okay, I like it.
Got that.
Yeah, you've been working all day to get that in.
Now, how about
with my fat tongue? It's kind of
It's
hard
tough.
hard to get out sometimes.
How about the value of owning the data?
Well, that's where we talked about this in the last podcast that that is where all the value is going to end up, is in the data, because data is just data. You turn it into information, you make decisions off it, make the company better. But I think the move to Domo and the more we can mine the data, Mark and I talked about one of the things that we could look for in the near future is a data analyst. I know that's, you're into data all day long. And he asked me who's doing it now, and I said JJ's doing it, Mark's doing it.
Yeah.
Randy's helping put it together.
Randy's having to put together, but it's the key to making all decisions, and the faster we get it, the better off we'll be. So that's why I think we do have to keep investing in technology, because the world is not slowing down.
Back to your original comment of you take it away to see the value of it. That's really not an answer I like. I'd like to have some way to quantify.
Leave your phone at home for a day.
Yeah. Or wake up and don't get your phone till noon and see.
Well, I tell you what,
start
GPS
shaking.
didn't work yesterday as I was driving in LA. Sometimes California just doesn't work for a little bit, and it was like a moment of, okay, I'm just going to pull over and wait till this thing kicks in, because I don't know, do I go left? Do I go right? What do I do? I literally was just, I got to wait. There's no reason to move. And so it came to a standstill. That's technology showing the value of it, right?
Right.
And so I don't know if I'd like to say, okay, what's the value of IT, and shut it down and then go, oh yeah, everything stopped, we suck. Go for it. That just doesn't, that would be a rough one. It'd be nice if you could come up with a better way to monetize it. I just don't know that answer without looking at clicks and how many clicks it saved you, or looking at revenue with how many less people, which, to be honest, I'm going to answer my own question here, I think, is I can look back and I can see the value. I can see the fruits of the tree.
Yeah.
But I can't looking forward. And I don't know whether or not it's a dead tree, or, it's a bad fruit or good fruit.
Well, when we first met each other, we talked about getting our foundational stuff in order first, which I think that's where most of this money has been spent, is getting the foundational stuff. Randy and I have had numerous discussions about tech products that are revenue producing. And that could be an online site that gives you an instant quote, and you can order online, and no one has to touch it.
Yeah.
So I think we're always talking about foundational stuff. Look, we're talking about counting warehouse stuff. We're talking about accounting. We're talking about where jobs are in a process. Well, there's nothing to say that tech can't build a revenue producing product. Zoom is basically a web conferencing tool. That's all it does. You sign up, you invite people, and through your Wi-Fi and their servers, it's on mass scale right now. But there's no reason why we can't put our heads together and come up with a revenue producing product that's tech based, that requires no touching at all and
time. Right now, I just want to get the product that's a revenue producing product right now would be something that would give our clients something that they don't have. Reporting data, the data that we have, and the reporting to go from there. And I think your question was more about owning the data, owning the software or the development of it, as opposed to not owning it and renting it. because that would lead you down a path eventually of being able to sell it or to lease it or let somebody else use it if it's of good quality.
That and the freedom of being able to make changes,
Yeah.
at our pace as opposed to someone else's, and then also the freedom to be able to, pull that data, manipulate that data, and use it, as opposed to being restrained to how they're housing it or how how much we can, how much they're actually collecting. I think to me is the
there's some amazing things that are going on in tech that I know I get to see, kind of being a consultant, but with you guys and part employee, part consultant is there's technologies out there right now that are probability analytics platforms, and so people making robo phone calls, like those that's a technology that annoys all of us, but there's probability analytics software out there that says, based on these certain profiles, that phone number has a 30% chance of being a better lead for you than not. And there's stuff going on. So it's all about predictive analytics rather than past. So how do I predict something? Let's, as we go into multifamily, like which ones are more probable to work with us than not? Like rather than just getting on the phone and
you can figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but there's technologies out there that are they're called predictive analytics companies, but there's things like that we may be able to build based on locations. Do they match our locations? Do they match? Are they growing? Are they shrinking? I mean, it's just.
I want to turn a little bit of the questions here, just a different direction. Hopefully, wrap up here. But I made a joke earlier about the IT guys are always the smartest guy in the room. How do you work with IT guys traditionally want to work remote, right? That seems to be where everybody wants to go. How do we create a sense of teamwork or of team? Because that's a big focus right now within our entity and our companies, is we want to be one team. We want to be a unit. How do I take guys that are typically ego-filled and very intelligent people, especially in their field, and get a teamwork feel out of that for the entire company? I got a guy that's solo at home that is smarter than me.
He's already an introvert.
Yeah, probably an introvert.
And most of them are.
And I want to try and make him a team. How do I do that? What is it from your experience? What have you seen on how to accomplish that?
Yeah, that is, first of all, it's a great question, and I honestly don't have the answer that you're probably looking for. But I think the thing that a lot of people have to understand is the makeup of the job and why developers are the way they are. I mean, they sit, their keyboard is their tool. Talk about curved screens.
Star Trek is the fault.
and so they're
screens.
sitting, typing, looking at a black screen and making words do something magical. I mean, it's not like building a home where you're seeing the wood and you put up your framing and everything like that. It's a really different job, and it requires it's part science and part creativity, which I know a lot of executives get upset that sometimes developers won't come until 9:30, but they would have been up all night because they've hit that creative juice, like a writer would be writing a novel or something. They may wake up at 1 o'clock and code till 4 in the morning, and it's just because they have coder's block, and it's a real thing. And so that's why I think they want to work from home. Some of them want to come in sometimes. It really is it's an enigma department that it's unlike any I've ever seen. And I think one of the answers is building teamwork. Is they do like to do things techie together. Like when we went down, we took a half a day and we went to a video arcade with the team. Everybody showed up, and it was like kids in a candy store. I mean, I know if you took some of the other people, they probably wouldn't be interested in.
I appreciate you not inviting me.
It was fun. I had a really good time. And you're playing like Mrs. Pac-Man and Galaga and some old games, but I think you just said you have to have events where you get everybody together. We went to the Phoenix Open.
So they got teamwork within themselves. How do you create the teamwork with sales side? How do you get it to where, on a football team, you've got your offense, defense, special teams, field goal unit, kickoff unit, punt unit, or whatever. You have all those different things that are there. How do you create a team that is completely separate?
I think
and time in.
They're like the kicker. We're like the kicker.
Yeah.
Go away for 3 hours, kick, and at the most crucial point of the game, you better make that.
Get it in.
That
it is. I would agree.
Yeah, they're like kickers. Yeah. Go ahead, JJ.
Well, we could relate it to the workspace in general, but I don't want to jump off topic. But maybe they're just a unique piece of the workspace, and their team unity is their team unity, and they could gel with the rest of the group in a different way, partially, but probably not fully as much as others. And I think it's probably depends on the individual as well. I agree. Think of the workspace in general. We've a lot of people are talking about teamwork and the lack of productivity as a team. The people are really truly quantifying how much more productive a team is when they're together, shoulder to shoulder and eyeball to eyeball during the day, as opposed to what we're experiencing now. In the beginning, it was like everybody went out. At the beginning of this pandemic, everybody blew out of the gate and went home and docked up and got everything they needed and said, "Hey, this is great. We can do exactly." As a matter of fact, I think in general, the workspace in general was probably a little more productive in the beginning of this pandemic. But now, as it becomes the norm, now we see the teamwork slip away, and we see people get distant. Mm-hmm. And now we're seeing the opposite side of this, spectrum where productivity is now dropping. And I think the sooner you get out of that,
people need a team. You need a team. You need to have somebody to. Yeah. I agree with you. I've been reading and looking up stuff. I think Lencioni had a podcast on it. Was talking about that too, and it talked about that when people aren't involved with a unit or go that way, they get home, they get sidetracked more, and productivity is dropping now that it's gone. It was great at first, but I don't know if that's happening here yet. I haven't seen anything along that line. JJ probably has, but along that line, that's a concern, and it's so that just makes me wonder with, is that the new norm? But I don't know if I like the new norm. I don't know. I'm still up in the air on it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are.
Yeah,
a lot of companies are.
Yeah, I would assume the developers. I would say probably half of them are fine with the current situation, but there's other half that want to be more social and be part of a team. Yeah. So and some of them, sometimes they're more distracting when they're here, which is kind of a problem too.
Well, and maybe there's a time for strengthening the team for them, and there's a time for just getting it done. That 2:00 in the morning. Yeah. I guess the question might be more along the lines of what percentage from a tech perspective, what percentage of a developer's time should be focused on teamwork. And I'm certain it's different than
it's not going to be as much.
It's definitely not going to be as much.
Yeah, just to wrap things up on the accountability and everything of developers, and I think we talked about Net Promoter Score, but when Travis runs his sprints, there's points associated based on complexity of task and how long it's going to take, and all that. So, that's one really good way of seeing is managing productivity. Is are you getting your sprints done, and how many points are you doing, and
that'd be something on our next podcast I'd like to talk about, bring up is the point system that's created by an agile method. Because I always think it's funny that the person that's saying how long it's going to take is the one that's actually creating the points.
That shouldn't be how it works, but we need more people to do that.
Yeah, you get a true agile method. You get a true point system to go.
We need a person that's unbiased, putting down the points. But so thank you guys both for attending the podcast too of Tech Talk, and we're going to have another one in a few weeks, and we'll maybe invite Travis over, since he is our Scrum Master and Development Manager. So we'll bring him in, and thank you both for your time, and
thank you for your time.
Have a great week.